Okay, so are you ready to tackle a question that might sound kind of crazy?
Oh yeah, hit me.
Is the Baha'i faith like the end of all religions?
Oh.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty wild claim, maybe even a little scary sounding when you first hear it.
Yeah, I can see that.
But before we just dismiss it as like total science fiction, let's take a minute and think about where this idea comes from.
I think that's a great idea. You're right, it really challenges how most of us think about how religions work.
Right.
And the Baha'i Faith has such a unique perspective on prophets and revelation.
So for a listener who might not be super familiar with the Baha'i Faith, could you give us a super quick rundown of like the basics? What's it all about?
Okay. In a nutshell, the Baha'i Faith is a pretty new religion, actually.
Okay.
It was founded in the 1800s by a Persian guy named Bahá'í.
Okay.
He's considered a prophet like the big ones, Moses, Jesus.
Yeah.
But there's a twist.
Oh.
Baha'is have this concept called progressive revelation.
Progressive revelation.
Oh.
Okay, that's definitely not something you hear every day. What is that?
So the basic idea is that God doesn't just reveal everything all at once.
Right.
Right? It's more like he reveals his will gradually throughout history, through different prophets and teachers.
Got it.
Each one brings teachings that are kind of tailored to the specific needs of their time.
So it's not like one prophet shows up and is like, boom, here's the complete truth. End of story.
Nope, not at all. It's more like a story that keeps going.
Okay.
With each prophet adding a new chapter.
Interesting.
Think about it like how science has evolved over time.
Okay.
Like, we don't throw out Newton's laws just because Einstein came along later.
All right.
We build on the knowledge that came before.
Mm-hmm.
We're always expanding our understanding.
Okay, I'm kind of starting to see where this is going, but how does that connect to the Baha'i faith being the end of all religions?
So Baha'is believe that Baha'u'llah is the most recent prophet
Okay.
in this long line of messengers, and they see his teachings as the culmination of all the revelations that came before.
Okay.
A message of unity and peace for the whole world.
So instead of like competing religions, it's more like they're all pieces of one giant story.
Exactly.
It's a big change from how we usually think about religion.
It really is.
But doesn't that still mean there's like a hierarchy? Like even if no religion is like right or wrong,
Mm-hmm.
isn't the Baha'i faith still claiming to be at the top?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
The Baha'i Faith wouldn't see it as a pyramid, though. More like a spiral.
The spiral. Okay.
Yeah, each religion is like a stage in humanity's spiritual evolution. A different perspective on the same fundamental truth.
So maybe instead of right and wrong, it's more like different levels of understanding. We're all on the same path toward truth, but at different points along the way.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. And the Baha'i Faith really emphasizes that truth isn't static.
Oh.
It changes as our ability to understand it grows. Like, imagine you're teaching a kid about math. You start with basic stuff, right? Like addition and subtraction.
Right.
Before you move on to harder things like algebra
Yeah.
or calculus.
Makes sense.
So it's not that the earlier prophets were wrong.
Right.
It's just that humanity wasn't ready for the full picture yet.
Got it.
And while the Baha'i Faith sees Baha'u'llah's teachings as the most complete and relevant for our time today, it doesn't say that the earlier revelations aren't valid.
It's about recognizing that our understanding of spiritual things keeps growing and changing.
Exactly.
Okay, now, how does this idea of fulfillment fit into all this? It's a big deal in the Baha'i faith, right?
Right.
But it's always been a little confusing to me.
It's a complicated idea, and
Yeah.
people get it wrong a lot.
Okay.
Baha'is believe that Baha'u'llah's teachings fulfill prophecies you find in older religions,
Okay.
but not in a literal way.
Oh.
It's about seeing a deeper spiritual meaning
Okay.
and a connection between different faiths.
So when Baha'is talk about, like, the return of Christ or the coming of the Qawwam in Islam, they don't mean it literally.
Right. They see those figures as representing hopes and longings that are expressed in different ways
Okay.
across various cultures and faiths.
They believe that Baha'u'llah's teachings provide a way to understand those hopes and actually make them happen.
Exactly, in a way that goes beyond specific religions.
This idea that all religions are part of one story is really making me think differently about faith. Does that mean there's no such thing as a wrong religion?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It gets to the heart of how Baha'is view religious diversity.
Okay.
Instead of seeing religions as like competing ideologies, they see them as different expressions of the same underlying truth.
Okay, so we're starting to see how powerful this idea of progressive revelation could be.
Right.
But I gotta ask, even with all the good vibes, if the Baha'i faith is all about unity, why is there still so much fighting in the world?
That's true.
Even between different Baha'i communities.
You're right. No religion is perfect. We're all human.
Right.
Disagreements and conflicts are bound to happen. But the Baha'i faith actually gives us a way to deal with those conflicts
Oh, really?
in a constructive way that brings people together.
Okay, go.
One of the key things they emphasize is consultation.
Consultation.
Yeah, so when there's a disagreement,
Yeah.
individuals and communities are encouraged to talk it out
Okay.
openly and respectfully.
Got it.
Try to understand each other's perspectives
Mhm.
and come up with solutions that promote unity.
So it's about like actually putting those principles of unity into practice,
Right.
even when things get tough.
Exactly. It can definitely be challenging.
But the Baha'i faith sees this whole process of consultation as crucial for growth, for individuals and for the community as a whole.
It's all about learning from each other,
Right.
overcoming differences,
Yeah.
moving closer to that vision of a unified world.
That makes a lot of sense. You can't just talk about unity right.
Right.
You have to actually work at it,
Uh-huh.
even when it's messy.
For sure.
Now, I'm curious, how does this idea of progressive revelation impact the way Baha'is view social change and progress?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It seems like if you believe God is gradually revealing his will, you might have a different take on how society should change too.
You're hitting on something really important there. The Baha'i Faith's teachings about social progress are totally tied to this idea of progressive revelation.
Okay.
Baha'u'llah's teachings touch on all sorts of social issues,
Like what?
like the equality of men and women,
Okay.
getting rid of prejudice, the importance of education for everyone.
So it's not just about spiritual stuff, it's also about guidance for how we should live together.
Absolutely. Baha'is see spiritual and social progress as going hand in hand.
Okay.
For example, Baha'u'llah taught that humanity is like one big body.
Oh, okay.
Just like all the different parts of your body have to work together, all the different people and nations in the world have to work together too.
So this unity thing isn't just some abstract idea.
Right.
It's like a blueprint for a better world.
Exactly. A world where we celebrate our differences instead of being afraid of them, where people work together instead of fighting.
I think a lot of people would agree with that, but let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
No religion is perfect, right? There are always going to be some issues.
Of course.
What are some of the criticisms or controversies around the Baha'i faith?
Well, one thing people bring up is their structure.
Oh, okay. How they're
Yeah.
organized.
Yeah. They have this system of elected councils,
Uh-huh.
assemblies that govern the Baha'i community all over the world.
Yeah, no clergy or anything, right? Just these councils at local, national, international levels.
Yep.
And that system is meant to keep things unified
Uh-huh.
and avoid power struggles.
Exactly. But some people say it can be a bit too top-down,
Oh.
like it limits individual freedom.
So it's kind of a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
You get stability and order, but maybe lose some flexibility. It's interesting how they try to balance those things, especially in a faith that puts so much emphasis on unity.
It definitely raises some important questions, and it's something Baha'is are constantly talking about and trying to figure out.
How to find that right balance.
Exactly.
But I imagine there are controversies that go beyond just the structure.
Well, of course.
When you're talking about a religion that claims to fulfill all others, that's going to cause some friction. What are some of the big issues that come up?
Well, one thing is conversion.
Oh, yeah.
The Baha'i faith encourages people to respect all religions,
Okay.
but they also want to share their teachings and attract new followers.
So is that seen as like trying to convert people? Like getting them to leave their current religion?
Okay.
I know that can be a sensitive topic.
It can be, and Baha'is are very careful about it.
Oh.
They would say they're just sharing a message of unity and encouraging people to search for truth. They believe everyone has the right to choose their own path.
Okay, but that line between sharing and converting can be a bit blurry sometimes, right?
It can.
Especially in places where religion is really tied to culture and identity. I can see how that could create tension.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance.
So conversion is one potential flashpoint. What else?
Another area of controversy has to do with their teachings on certain social issues.
Oh, okay, like what?
For example, the Baha'i Faith doesn't condone same-sex marriage.
Really? That seems at odds with their focus on equality and getting rid of prejudice.
It definitely is an area where the Baha'i Faith clashes with some modern ideas.
Yeah.
And it's something a lot of people are grappling with, even within the Baha'i community.
I can only imagine those conversations must be tough. How do Baha'is who have more liberal views on social issues deal with that?
It's a complex issue. There's no easy answer. Some people focus on other parts of the faith that resonate more with them, while others try to understand these teachings in a different way or hope for change in the future.
It sounds like the same challenges any religion faces when it's trying to stay true to tradition while the world is changing around it.
You're right.
And it shows that even in a religion that's all about unity, there's still going to be a wide range of opinions and interpretations.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how this whole unity thing works, even with those disagreements. It's like they're walking a tightrope, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Trying to hold on to those traditional teachings while also dealing with all the changes happening in the world.
Definitely. It's a process, and that's what makes it so fascinating to me.
It's not about having a fixed set of beliefs.
Right.
It's about figuring out how to apply those beliefs in a world that never stops changing.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to shift gears a bit here.
Okay.
We've been talking a lot about the Baha'i Faith itself. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What does this unity thing actually look like in the real world?
Like, how are Baha'is actually trying to make it happen?
One of the main ways is through interfaith dialogue and collaboration.
So working with other religions.
Exactly. Baha'is believe that all the different religions are like different paths that lead to the same mountaintop.
Oh, I like that.
And if we work together, we can all learn from each other.
Right.
And build bridges.
So it's not about converting everyone to the Baha'i Faith.
Nope.
It's about finding common ground.
Exactly. And working together to make the world better.
That feels really different from how a lot of people talk about religion.
It is a different approach. It comes from that fundamental belief in the unity of all religions.
Give me some examples of how they're actually doing this. Like, what does it look like in action?
Well, it can take many forms. Participating in interfaith events, like services or conferences.
Okay.
Working together on projects to address social issues.
Like what kind of projects?
Like things related to poverty, or the environment, or education.
Got it.
There are tons of Baha'i-inspired organizations doing this kind of work all over the world.
That's really cool. It's like they're putting their faith into action.
Exactly.
But let's be honest for a second.
Okay.
We live in a world where people use religion to justify all sorts of terrible things. Can interfaith dialogue really make a difference?
That's a good question. And it's true we're facing huge challenges.
Right.
But Baha'is believe that it's important to keep trying.
Even if it feels like a small effort.
Even if it feels small, it's still a step in the right direction.
Makes me think of that quote about being the change you want to see in the world.
Right.
It sounds like Baha'is are trying to live that out.
They are.
But it's not just about talking right.
Right.
It's about taking action to address the root causes of the problems we see.
Exactly.
What are some of the things they're doing?
Well, Baha'is are involved in promoting peace and justice at every level.
Okay.
From local communities to global organizations.
Can you give me specific examples?
Sure. They've been pushing for the creation of a world governing body.
What?
A world governing body.
Wow.
Kind of like a global federation that could help resolve international conflicts peacefully.
So they're really thinking big picture. That's a pretty ambitious goal.
It is.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. For someone who's not a Baha'i, why should they care about all this?
That's a good question. I think the main takeaway is that we all have a responsibility to make the world a better place.
Right.
Whether we're religious or not.
And the Baha'i teachings offer a way to do that.
Exactly. They give us a framework for creating a world that's more just and peaceful.
So it's not about converting everyone to the Baha'i Faith. It's about highlighting ideas that can help everyone.
Right. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and working together.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've learned about the origins and beliefs of the Baha'i Faith. Talked about some of the controversies. And explored how their vision of unity is playing out in the real world.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
I hope our listeners have found it thought-provoking.
Me too. There's always more to learn. I encourage everyone to keep exploring these ideas.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning.
Right.
So for our listeners out there, we'll leave you with this one last thought.
Okay.
What if, just for a moment, we all set aside the things that divide us, religion, politics, whatever, and focused on what connects us as human beings? What kind of world could we create if we really embrace this idea of unity and diversity? It's something to think about.
It really is. You never know what you might discover when you start thinking about things in a new way.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.